Hey everybody, welcome back to the 30th episode of Taps and Patience. I am AJ with Design the Everything here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity. How you doing, Harrison?
Wow, that is really loud. I could not
Was
hear
it
you
really
at
loud?
all.
I'm sorry.
I could not hear you at all.
I was really proud of myself for talking through it and not being distracted like last time.
I believe it is it is the 30th episode. I was thinking it was the 29th, but you're right, it's the 30th. Wow, time flies.
Yeah, it's over half a year.
That is crazy. Wow, so how was your week?
What happened this week? Oh, it was the launch of the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
The Kickstarter isn't quite where I would like to see it, so it's been stressful.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to come back to that?
We can come back to that.
Okay. Anything else? Or no?
Not off top of my head. We can talk about working with Scott, but I'm going to adjust my mic levels while you talk here.
Okay. Well, then I'll talk about a little bit what's going on with me. We were super busy last week. So we had that meeting with that big customer. And I think I talked a little bit about this last week. And since then, we've just been getting a ton of work from him. And I'm super excited. And because of that, and I think I've talked about this a little bit before, but we have a goal of hitting 4,000 a week of revenue, 16,000 a month revenue, which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. And to put that in perspective, our credit card bill last month was 11,000. So, so if your goal is 16,000 a month and your credit card bill is 11,000 a month, and there's two of you, that doesn't leave much left over. So there's a lot of reasons for that. We had a lot of stuff that all hit, and a lot of big jobs that kind of all came in that we're still waiting to get paid on, a couple of them. And so that's part of the reason for all that. But still, regardless of all that, what's super exciting is that I believe we have enough money to pay off the credit card. And in addition to that, with that being paid off, our goal has been, like I said, 4,000 a week, 16,000 in a month. I can see the net 30, 90 day, or the net 30, the 30 days out in front of us. And right now we're pushing close to 9,000, I believe. And we have enough work right now that if we were able to bill for everything today, I think we'd reach our goal of 16,000 for the very first time. I believe. Not 100% sure on that. I need to double check the numbers, but if we were to finish out all the active POs that we have open right now, which we're hoping to get finished up next week, then we could hit that. So I'm super excited about that. The closest we've ever came in the past was, I believe we had 1 month at the end of last year, beginning of this year, where we were at around 11,000 for the 30-day out. So this could be the very first time that we actually hit our quote-unquote goal. So I'm super excited about that. Yeah. Are you still working over there?
I'm pausing it. I don't know what's going on. We're back on.
So
some technical difficulties there.
No worries. So anyways, that's kind of where we're at, and I'm super excited that we're, for the first time, it feels like we have some really, well, I shouldn't say for the first time. We've had really good months in the past. But this time it feels a little bit different because it doesn't feel like it's a one-time big job. It feels like a building of momentum. And it's just a completely different feeling. And the speed at which we're able to get work done and through our shop is way faster than it's ever been before.
Why is that?
That I don't know. It's a combination of getting more comfortable setting up jobs, getting more comfortable programming and speeds and feeds and having tooling. But I think a lot of it is also just a lean approach to everything, because I'm constantly tearing down and resetting up on the machine. I'm constantly coming up with new techniques for holding things. And so I can do things in multiple setups. And like last week on Thursday, I had 3 different parts. I think I had an 8, a 4, and a 2 that I was trying to run in that day. And I almost never hit when I actually quote people, like when I quote how much time it's going to take something. My goal has always been to hit that or to increase our price. And it's kind of been like our price was way down here and how much time it's taking is way up here. And they've been slowly kind of ratcheting closer and closer together. And on Thursday last week, I actually reached for the very first time. I actually got all the parts done in less time than I had quoted by about an hour. And so I was super excited about that. Weston didn't think I would be able to get them done by the end of the day on Thursday, but I did. And it just felt super good. It just felt like, what is that? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. It just felt like
Yep.
that. Like I didn't feel like I was going fast at any point in the time, but everything just went smooth. And so it just excuse me, it felt really good. So and then on Friday, I actually had a very interesting meeting. So Friday, we almost got no work done at all on Friday, because I have a different cousin. He's an older one. His dad has a cabinet business, and he's been slowly kind of moving in and helping out his dad and kind of taking over more and more roles. And we just have know a lot of people, but when let me back up just a second. So we have my cousin and their cabinet shop. My family originated from Michigan, and my grandfather used to work for a boat builder many years ago, and they're still really good friends. He comes down because he actually married, or he married a gal in his later years that actually lives down here, and so he comes down every once in a while. And he has this guy who is an actual lean expert who worked at Toyota, went to GM, and did lean consulting for many years. And he actually helped out his boat building business back in the day. Well, he came and talked to my cousin who has the cabinet shop, and he's basically retired now, but he basically said, "Hey, you're good friends with the guy who ran the boat business. I'll come down and look at your guys' shop and just give you some advice. Just because I was planning on coming down at some point anyways, and I'll just stop by." And so I got to kind of come down and sit down in as a third wheel. Me and Weston did, to go kind of watch them look at a manufacturing business and what needs to be adjusted for lean. And it was a lot of fun. This guy's got 30, 40, 50 years experience doing this kind of stuff, and it was really interesting to kind of see someone who's been through the ringer with all this kind of go through their shop and break things down. And the really cool thing about it was nothing was super complicated. Everything was very basic. It's just the stuff that, like, especially watching their reaction to his suggestions, it was all simple stuff, but no one really takes the time to actually sit down and look at their business in that way. And so it was just really cool to be a fly on the wall and to kind of put in my 2 cents here and there and see kind of their change. And what was really interesting is this is actually his second visit. He actually came, I think, at the beginning of the year. And since his first visit to his second visit, they've already increased their capacity by 30 to 40% just by rearranging the shop so they get better flow. So it was really cool to kind of sit down and see the problems that they're facing and the solutions that they're coming with to overcome those problems. So I've been talking for a while. You got any input?
Yeah, sorry, I'm still having headphones issues. I'm going to pause for a second here. All right, we're back. My headphone issues are fixed with a hard wire. Sorry about that, guys. So,
go ahead.
You just caught me up on all the things I couldn't hear through my headphones as they were breaking up. One of the things you said is that you were already implementing lean. What does that look like in your shop?
So what it looks like in our shop, and example is for lean is the ability to change between jobs quickly and efficiently. And so an example of lean that I gave this guy was we try to have enough tool holders where we can have all the tools set up offline. And when we need to change jobs, we're not constantly retouching off tools. We just have our tools labeled and we just switch them out. That way we don't have to retouch off every single time or get them out, change out, take all the tools out of the machine, take all the tools that are currently in the tool holders out, swap them over to the new ones, tighten them down, stick it in the machine, retouch them off. Instead, we could just take them out, put a little sticky note on them, we don't use sticky notes, but we have like a little 3D printed thing that goes over top of them that we write the tool number on, stick it in our toolbox, grab another tool and throw it in there. And we'd probably need more tool holders now, but we have a decent amount, and it's been awesome. And having a few more would probably help a little bit more. So that was one example. Another example I gave is that we try to Kaizen foam and 3D print organizers everywhere. And then for our fixturing, we have the Saunders fixture table. So that allows us to change over jobs a lot faster than if it was just the T-slots. And I'm really seeing a lot more value out of the Saunders table as I'm doing more and more jobs for these bigger companies because I can change things out a lot quicker.
Can I make an observation about the tool holders?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't the problem with your tool holders then not the number of tool holders you have, but rather how long it takes to touch off a tool?
We already have an automatic.
You're adding inventory.
We have an automatic tool touch off deal.
Yeah, it doesn't mean there's not a better way to do it. Because adding thousands of dollars of inventory of tool holders isn't ideal.
No, not necessarily. It all depends. So this is one of the points that he brought up, and this is something that I've never heard anyone say in lean. So he said in Toyota has 4 hours of inventory on the production line. That's all they have. He said, when you're starting to implement lean, he's like, I want you to have 5 days of inventory on hand. He said, you can start to lower it down over time. But he said, when you're switching over to lean, trying to get by with as minimal as possible is almost counterproductive. Start off with what you need to be successful where you're at, and then over time lower that value. So maybe you can get down to 4 days or 3 days or 2 days. He said the closest I've ever seen anyone get. Now this is a little bit on the production side of things. This doesn't necessarily apply directly to machine shop. I'm still thinking in terms of how his wood shop production was going. But he said, he said in America, he said, I've never seen a company get below a day of inventory. He said Toyota's the only one. They said they've been doing it for so long that allowed them to get down to 4 hours of inventory. So there's not really anyone else around in the U.S. specifically that can get anywhere close to that. And so he actually recommended getting more stuff when you're switching over to a lean method in the beginning, and then whittling that down over time as you kind of dial in everything. And so I would argue getting more tool holders is going to be more effective for right now because it allows you to put your energies elsewhere. And now one thing that I did mention with him is stuff like our drills and taps. We're not going to get enough tool holders to hold all of our drills and taps. That's just not going to happen. There's way too many drills, way too many taps. Instead, we have collet holders that are collet chucks that are just designed for drilling and tapping, and those are quick and easier to change out than the ER stuff. So,
when you say collet chuck, do you mean drill chuck?
Yeah, drill chuck. Sorry, yeah. Drill chucks. We have 4 drill trucks, so we can have two. We can have a drill tap combo. We can have 2 drill tap combos set up at any one point. Because we haven't run into an instance where we've had more than 2 different sized holes that need to be drilled and tapped on one part, on the same side or on multiple sides.
I was not meaning to accuse you of being inefficient. I was trying to provide other ways of framing the problem.
Yes.
Because, for example, instead of investing, a couple $1,000s in more tool holders, which granted, Tormach tool holders are not expensive. So it
No.
would not be a couple $1,000s, it would be a couple $100. But let's say you were a bigger shop and tool holders cost more using RegoFix or whatever. Instead of that, you could invest in something like a tool setter to be able to do them offline. And
Yeah.
then you don't have to do any set touching off in the machine, and you can have less inventory. Or
Yeah.
you could do something like you can do in the Zoom speed post, where you can have it set to touch off tools before the tool is used. So you can actually load up an ATC with tools of unknown length, and
Mm-hmm.
then hit go, and it'll touch them off as the program goes. So there are. I'm just saying, there's other ways to solve problems, and you have to sit down and do the cost benefit analysis. And yes, you can do the Zoom speed thing, but that might be a little bit risky, and that's a good way to crash a machine. Or yeah, we can buy a tool setter, but we could, the tool setter is going to cost us $10,000, and the extra tool holders will cost us $1,000. And like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There are other ways to approach the problems, and just throwing money at more tool holders isn't necessarily the lean way.
No. And I wouldn't suggest that. Everything is contextual. You have to weigh the pros and cons of everything, for sure. Just the interesting approach that I was trying to pull out of that was, I wasn't necessarily saying that what you're saying was wrong. What I was just saying was, I've never heard anyone say that whenever talking about lean. Everything is about elimination, and I've never heard of someone being like, no, add as much as you need and then try to get it down. Like, get the process flowing and then work on optimization. And
that checks out with what I've heard, because like, you don't want to just shut down your business for a year while you figure things out. Like,
yeah,
no, you make little incremental improvements over time.
yeah, but I mean, like, you just like, when you listen to, I mean, a lot of these, like, I've been listening to the continuous improvement podcast, like, they are hyper focused on removing bottlenecks and things and reducing inventory down to the bare minimum, which is super cool. And I really like that thought process, but it was just an interesting perspective listening to them talk about it, and then listening to this other guy who's been doing it in major industries for many years talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and it was just different perspective. And it kind of comes back to the point, like, there is no such thing as a right and wrong answer. There is a better and worse. And so, like, going back to the tool holder deal, yeah, is it better to buy more tool holders? Do we need to look at different tool holding methods? Do we need to look at methods that are faster or less hands on? Like, there's a lot of different ways you to skin a cat in that situation, and it's just which one makes the most sense for where we are today, and which instance would benefit us the most in the long run. And honestly, the way it is right now, we only have to set up one or two tools now every time we change stuff over. So before, we would have to change out all the tool holders. Right now, I would say anytime we're changing stuff in and out, I'm only changing 1 to 2 tools. And no matter how many tool holders I get, I'd probably still be changing 1 to 2 tools unless I got enough to hold up all of them, because I'm going between steel, aluminum, and stainless constantly. And I have a 12 tool holder ATC. I'm going to be changing stuff out no matter what I do. I can't switch between all those materials and keep the same 12 tools in the umbrella.
Yeah. And since maybe this is a good argument for focusing down more, is, if you were, well, and when I say you now, I'm talking to the hypothetical person,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily you specifically, but like someone who is running a job shop could say, okay, we are only doing aluminum parts, or we are only doing stainless parts. And that would cut your tooling down, in half or by 2/3, because then you could only have aluminum tools or only have stainless tools. And it's kind of one of the benefits that I get in being able to design my own stuff, is because, I have the same 12 tool ATC that you have. And I am always super annoyed when I have to change out tools in there, because it happens maybe 3 times a month. Like, I never change tools in my ATC because I design my stuff to use the same tooling.
Oh, yeah. I'm changing out tools pretty much every day. So, Every time I run a job, I'm changing and setting up a tool. So, but because I'm up to almost 180 tools in my Fusion library
Oh, gosh.
currently.
I just hit 55, I think.
Yeah. So I'm up to 180, and I still have more tools than I have currently set up in Fusion because I have a lot of drills and taps that I have at the ready that I haven't actually used.
So how
So,
many tools do you have set up at the moment?
like in my machine and in my toolbox,
Like
like
that you
total,
could load at a minute's notice without having to switch the tool or touch it off.
I have the 12 in the machine, and then I probably have another 12 to 15 in the toolbox.
That's not bad at all. I would say I probably have about a total of 20, maybe 25,
Yeah,
depending on if you include things like the face mill that I've never used.
yeah,
So I guess it's not set up, but it could be.
yeah. So we have a lot of tools that we've used, and we're constantly changing stuff in and out. And we are buying new tool holders every once in a while. If we have like a specialty tool that needs something, we'll buy a tool holder. Like, for example, we bought a new tool holder when we got the slitting saw. Um, so obviously that wasn't going to work in anything we currently had, but we probably have a healthy amount of tool holders. Like I couldn't foresee there's like the tools that I'm changing out are kind of specialty tools depending on the job at this point. And I'm not going to have all my specialty tools set up. All my core tools are pretty much set up and I never change them if I can help it. That being said, a couple tool holders, like one or two more tool holders might help because there are instances I still have run into instances where I've had to take aluminum tools that I know I'm going to continue to use relatively soon out when I'm doing a stainless job because I've run out of tool holders. So I would say 3 to 4 more tool holders would probably be the sweet spot where we'd be able to have I'm changing out tools somewhat regularly, but I'm not touching all the ones that are quote unquote standard that almost never change. And I use them on almost every aluminum job or every stainless job or every steel job. Like if I had those core tools set up and then I had a handful of holders that I could use for all my specialty stuff, kind of like the drill chucks for the drilling and tapping, that'd be my sweet spot.
How do you designate what a core tool is versus a swing tool?
Core tool is one that I use on 90% of that material's work.
Okay, so I understand the definition, but like, do you have a list somewhere that's like, T1 through 5 is core tool, everything else swing tool? Or like, we paint the core tools red or.
I haven't done anything like that. They've kind of developed over time based off of use. So I know tool 2024, tool 17, tool 8, tool 33. Let's see here. Tool 31 and 32, tool 95, tool 110. Like these are all tools, and I could tell you what each and every single one of them are. They're all tools that are dedicated towards specific jobs that I use when I'm doing aluminum or when I'm doing stainless or steel. So, for example, tool 33 is the chamfer tool. I use that on every material, no matter what. That is a definition of a core tool. Tool 110 is my face mill for aluminum. Any job that I do aluminum with where I need to face something, that's the tool I'm using. Tool 24 is my Core 5 flute rougher for aluminum. I use that on every aluminum job unless it's super tiny. When it's super tiny, that's when I go to tool 4, which is my quarter inch, or not my quarter inch, it's my quarter inch. It's my quarter inch 3 flute aluminum tool.
Did
And
you just
I
call a
use
quarter-inch tool super tiny? Sorry, that's what I caught there.
I was thinking of tool 17, which is my 1/8 inch, which is super tiny. My quarter inch is
Yeah.
probably mid range. Anything 1/8 inch and under, I consider super tiny.
I'm like, wow, I get to use an 1/8 inch tool on this? It's huge.
So to put things in perspective, on the job that I'm currently working on, because I've been doing so much stainless and low belt, I absolutely love low belt now. I
Mm-hmm.
will not run stainless in anything but low belt.
Interesting.
I used a 3/8 inch and a half, 5 flute mill for stainless, and I did full engagement with it on the Tormach, which is an
That's
impressive feat.
Yeah, this is pretty impressive. I I don't know, with the coins I was using 1/16 inch tools. I mean, now with the carabiners I'm dealing with odd 80 taps and
Yeah,
like I think it's a 1.35 millimeter drill, and
yeah.
um I broke the first one of those drills before I even ran the part
Hmm.
because I was tightening my fixture down and I hit my Allen wrench into the drill in the ATC.
Oh no. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, I've we've gone through a lot of tools, and we got to be fair, we have a lot of tools that we've only used like once or twice.
Yeah.
That we had a job, we had a hyper specific need for a tool, we got the tool, we did the job, and now that tool is probably never going to get used ever again. And which brought up an interesting point that we were talking about a couple weeks ago. For jobs that require dedicated tooling, we were not building that into our quotes, and we have started building
Mm,
that into our quotes.
yeah.
And so, if we're doing a job where it's like, I need a very specific reamer for a hole, I'm going to charge you for that tool because I'm never going to use that tool again. And I'm done. I'm done quoting stuff without charging people for all the tooling that I'm having to get for specific things. So, if it's something that's like, yeah, I'm going to use that. It's a long reach tool to get into the spot, but I can see a lot of other places where I'm going to use it. I might only charge you like half or 3/4 of the cost, but I'm going to charge you something um, for that. And thankfully, as I'm getting into higher paying jobs from local customers, I mean, my prices are so low right now that when I throw the tooling price in there, they're like, "Oh, you're still below everyone else."
Yeah. Well, everybody else has to buy the tool too. Like,
Yes, yeah, yeah. Which, yeah, it's nice for us because it shows there's a lot more headroom, but it's also a little bit frustrating because the company that we're doing a lot of work for, I've had a lot of other machine shops say, "Oh, we won't do work for them because they're too cheap," and it's like I keep having to raise my prices because I'm too cheap.
yeah.
so, so like it's a good feeling, but it's also like, where's your customers? I want some of your customers.
Yeah.
So
Going back a step though, I would love to find a way to designate what the what do we call them? The non-switchable tools are, the core
yeah,
tools. Because I have the same thing. I can list off like cool like tool 1 and 11 and 4 and 2 and 6 and like I know what all those tools are and I use them all the time. But like I know that. But if let's say Scott was having to run the machine, which he doesn't, but he could eventually, and he's choosing which tool holder to tear down. Like he's not going to know not to tear down tool number 4 because we use it for everything, and it's the master tool that we use to set the height of the touch probe. Like it's just a random tool in there.
yeah, that's fair.
I wish.
Yeah.
I mean, we could Cerakote them like the nut or something,
Mm-hmm.
but that's probably I don't want to introduce any not misalignment, balancing.
Well, you could get like a colored tape and put it at the base
I
or
mean, you're still
something.
adding weight to a tool. I
True.
may be overly paranoid about this, but I
I was gonna
don't
say
I don't
at
like
ten
doing
thousand
that.
RPM, I don't feel like we're like at the threshold where people just begin to start maybe balancing their tools.
Yeah, but with like a 1/32 inch tool,
I feel like you're gonna have more issues trying to get your run out in the tool holder than you are from any balancing error.
that's true. And actually, all of my core tools are not ones where that's like ultra important. So
Yeah.
maybe it's not the end of the world. I have I have a bunch of Tormach tool holders. I have a bunch of Tool shank. what do you call them, like end mill holders, the kind with a set screw.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of those are ones that I run high precision tools in. But then I have some Technics tool holders with RigoFix collet nuts with Technics collets in them. And those are where I put the tiny tools. And those ones, because I only have a handful of those tool holders, those do get swung in and out pretty soon. Like if I'm changing any tool, it's probably one of those.
So let me ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
Do you clean your collets and tool holders before when you're changing tools? Like, do you just run your finger and try to get the chips out? Do you just blow them off? How do you clean when you're switching tools out of tool
It
holders?
depends. It depends on the tool and the tool holder. If it is over 1/8 of an inch, I just blow it off with the air gun. If it is a very small tool, then I will generally wipe the shank with alcohol and or put the collet nut in my ultrasonic for a second. Or excuse me,
Okay.
the collet and the collet nut,
Okay.
and then
I,
blow it
I
off.
have I have just started, and I'm ashamed to say it, but I used to blow off and wipe off everything in between changing stuff out, but you'd still have the risk of getting chips and stuff in there. And so I have started the practice of every time I'm tearing down a tool, I take everything over and I stick it in the ultrasonic cleaner for a few seconds, and then I blow it all off and wipe it off and make sure that I got everything off of it.
I think
And I've
blowing it off is good enough most of the time,
you
but
say you say that, but you haven't seen what my collets look like.
okay, fair enough.
They specifically it seems like in stainless is the worst. All the little chips just get jammed up into the
That makes
collets,
sense. Okay.
and it's nasty. In aluminum, it's almost no problem at all. Like in aluminum, I could blow them off all day long and it'd probably be fine. But it's stainless. I don't know what it is about stainless, but that stuff likes to barb into everything it touches, and it just fills my tool collets, my ER collets, up. And so blowing those off and wiping them down never seems to get everything off of them. So that's when I started dunking everything. And I'm just like, that's just my general rule now. Everything goes into the ultrasonic cleaner when I'm changing tools out. Like
It
I
might
don't.
be it might be worth investing in an ultrasonic for your workbench, right? By like where you have the mounted bracket for changing tools, because then you
It
don't have
might.
an excuse to not go over. I should probably do that too.
Yeah.
Because
So
ultrasonics are what, like $100, $150,
yeah,
which
something like
is
that.
5 tools over the course of the lifetime of the
Mm-hmm.
ultrasonic. So like that's a pretty good trade off.
Like as soon as I started doing it, I instantly noticed an improvement in some of my tool holders. Like they just went together nicer. Everything just felt smoother, and it just looked a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
So, because like I'd clean everything off, but it's like if you look in the cracks, you can still see like a couple chips here and there, and it's just like, it's not touching a mating surface. It's probably okay, but it's like no, I'm done with that. I want it to look like it's brand new out of package every time I put it together.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I'm probably going to get a lot of hate on Instagram for that. For
For
people that are
cleaning your tool holders?
no, for not cleaning my
For
tool
not cleaning
holders.
your
Like,
tool holders.
yeah, for
For anybody who wants to hate about that, guys, it's a Tormach. It's fine.
yeah, yeah, and it's one of those things. Another thing that I've started doing a lot more of that I didn't used to do, which I've kind of always wondered, and maybe you can interject on this as well. Do you clean off your vise or wipe it down with WD-40 or anything, or does it just you spray it, you blow it off with an air hose, stick it in your toolbox, and then when you need it, you stick it back on your machine?
So in this case, mod vices,
Yeah.
I just kind of wipe the coolant off of them. The coolant adds a nice little anti-rust coating.
Okay. I have started wiping them down. My mod vices and my big vice. Every time I'm sticking stuff on and off my Saunders table, I'm wiping it down by hand and I'm spraying WD-40 on all the mating surfaces. Because even though I try to keep my coolant concentration high enough, I get surface rust every once in a while. And so I'm just trying, and it's usually like, if I look at the vise, the top of the vise, granted, this is not the mod vise, this is my 5-inch Tormach vise. The top of it always looks fine. I almost have no rust anywhere, except if I'm like doing a lot of jobs where I'm opening and closing the vise a specific amount for a long period of time. When I move it way back, I'll sometimes see like a dirty water. It's not really rust, but it just kind of has that rust look to it.
Mm-hmm.
It wipes right off, and it's not on the surface of the part of the vise. But when you flip it off, whenever I take it off, the bottom side will always look a little bit rusty. And so I'll always take like a wire brush or something to it and try to clean it up. But I've started spraying that down with WD-40, and the spot I'm going to stick it on the Tormach or on that fixture plate with WD-40. That way I'm trying to prevent anything from getting underneath there.
You've got that galvanic corrosion going on.
Maybe. That could be what it is.
Yeah, it's the cast iron vise and the aluminum fixture plate.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's why Saunders has you put down the dielectric grease when you install your fixture plate.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm constantly changing that stuff in and out all the time. Maybe I need to try to find something. Like I started using WD-40. Maybe that's not the best stuff to use. I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
What about like an LP? Is it LPS 10 or LPS 30? That spray goopy oil stuff.
Maybe. I don't know. This is a question, I guess, for the listeners. What do you use between your aluminum fixture plate and your vices?
How long,
if anything?
How long do you let your vise sit there? I can't imagine it can be that long.
It's not long right now, but in the past, it's sat there for over a month before.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. I've just never had any of those issues. Maybe it is your coolant, because we're using different coolants, right?
Yeah, we were using different coolants. I'm using Vasco 600, I think, or something like that. I'd have to go look it up exactly to see specifically.
I've never seen any of these issues with Qualcam.
Yeah. And we're trying to use up what we have. We might change over again. Because when we changed the first time, we didn't have a refractometer, and so we thought the quality chem that we were using was junk. And so we called up a coolant guy, and he's like, no, you need to be using this stuff. And we're like, okay. And he's like, you got a refractometer? We're like, nope. Okay, well, use this with that and make sure you're at these percentages. Okay. And then had we been doing that with the quality chem from the get-go, we probably would have been fine.
Yeah. I finally have my RO system hooked up and running well, and that has been really nice. I probably need to dump all my coolant and start over with new coolant, because I am still getting some of that foaming issue that comes from having too many minerals in your water, and I think I've abused my coolant too long. Plus, there may or may not be an Oreo in my coolant that I have not been able to find. So, from the video that I made, not from snacks.
Yeah.
I don't think it's actually in the machine, because I would have found it by now, but I still don't know where it is.
Yeah.
But
I've drained my tank before, and there was a lot of chips in the bottom of it.
The only time I've completely drained my tank was when we moved.
And you hadn't had it very long at that point.
No, it probably ran for a couple 100 hours for the pry bars, but maybe 200 hours. But that was it, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do now have that extra filter on mine that sits below the Tormach filter, and that helps a lot. Like, I haven't bothered putting in inline filtration yet, even though I probably should, just because I haven't really needed it.
Mm-hmm. We've definitely needed it. We have enough stuff that gets through. In fact, I ran into a problem where we ran out of filters, and so we had to order some. So I ran it a couple days without that filter on there, and my coolant nozzles almost immediately plugged.
Did they?
Like one or two of them did. It was just like chips were getting through, and I could tell immediately. And then I got it back in there, and I was fine. So
I need to get that filter in for good measure. I've been sitting on it for a year. It would take me probably half an hour to get it hooked up. I have all the parts. I just need to mount it on the machine. But like, basically you would just be filtering out the fines because the filter I
No.
have in there gets all this. Like, there's not big
Oh.
stuff in my coolant. Like, I just
Oh,
need to
okay.
get rid of any fines that might be in there that I can't see.
I would imagine for you, you'd almost need it more than I do. Even though I'm getting big stuff out of mine, the fine stuff is where, like, when I pull that thing out, the whole outside of it is just like covered. Like, you can't,
Mm-hmm.
not by chips that you can visibly see, but it's almost like a dust.
Yeah.
And that's specifically anytime I run smaller tooling.
Yes.
And so if all you're running is smaller tooling, you'd probably get more benefit out of it than I would.
Yep. But it doesn't clog the nozzles, so it's not a obvious like you need to do this right now. It's the kind of
Yeah.
problem that can sneak up on you, and then you fix, and you're like, oh, this is way better. I should have done that a long time ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're probably not producing big enough chips to clog anything at this point most of the time.
When with the old carabiner design or the old carabiner cam, when I was doing them with the feed mill, that made a reasonable sized chip. And it was like just big enough that they would get through the filter, or just small enough they could get through the filter, but just big enough that they would cause issues.
I'm going to refer back to a previous conversation where a quarter-inch tool was small for me but large for you.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten any custom tooling made?
No, I've wanted to, but I haven't.
I think I need to do that for these carabiners. The tooling I'm
Oh.
using right now is 3 millimeter, which is 0.118 inches, and I think I
Mhm.
want 0.1 inch tooling. I just want a
Point
little bit more
one?
thickness. Yeah, 0.1, 100 thou
Bigger or like
total, 0.1 inch tooling.
why?
So I'm going from 0.118 to 0.100.
Oh, yeah. I was
So
thinking
18
like
thou smaller.
yeah, sorry. I was thinking something else. Why? Just so you can like do a pass each way?
No, I want to do them in one pass, which I have been doing. The problem is I want to make with the new flexure design on the new carabiners, it is more flexury. Like there's literally more linear length, which means there is less strain on the titanium as it bends.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, the squeezy isn't as stiff. Like the spring is less stiff than it was.
I'm tracking.
And by going to just a slightly smaller tool that gets me 9 thou on either side, that would keep my flexure life still better, but it would also make it stiffer.
Okay. I'm going to check something while you're talking.
Yeah, I know there's like 9/64ths or something that are pretty close, but I think they're too small if I remember right.
Let's see here. Because
Unless
Harvey,
someone, I was gonna
have
say,
you
unless
looked at?
someone actually makes a 100 thou tool, which I didn't actually think to check.
Because Harvey Tools makes a lot of 100 thou.
Do they really? Of course they do. Is it more expensive than buying a custom tool though?
It's pretty expensive. It's $31.
Yeah. Which I don't know. That might actually be feasible with the new carabiner design because there is way less slotting. In fact, I changed the the cam for the old carabiner, the not for climbing carabiner. I changed that over from the feed mill to the new 3 millimeter end mill that I'm using. With the feed mill, the entire pallet of 16 carabiners took 2 hours. With the new tooling and the new tooling and the new speeds and feeds, that pallet takes 7.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
So that's not the best. But what it does is it eliminates basically 100% of human cleanup. They go straight off the machine into the tumbler. Whereas before, I was having to do a bunch of sandblasting and tumbling, and I would still run into other issues and yada, 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 yada.
I will take machine time over hand finishing every time.
Yep. I ran 2 pallets of the not for climbing carabiners. The first one I did during the day because it was new code and proving it out. The second one It was the next night. And I hit go on the machine and I walked away. I never even saw the spindle turned on. I came back the next morning and there was just a pallet of carabiners. I was like, oh, this is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
The very last one on there got scrapped because I believe there was tool wear in the Z direction. And so there was an onion skin on the bottom. But it was like, oh, push button, get parts. We're living the dream here.
I just sent you a link for the tool that you need.
Awesome. Thank you.
On Instagram.
You're giggling, which makes me think it's sarcastic. Is it actually the tool?
It's actually the tool. I think it. I mean, yeah, that should be exactly the tool you need.
The length of cut is maybe a little bit long, but fine. Shank diameter, overall length. Yeah, I mean that'll work. $31.
Yeah, and they had one that was 1.5. It only went to. See, how thick are your carabiners?
They're slightly over 3/16 at the moment. Though actually, now that I think about it, then we're going to try going up to 1/4 inch. So that would be about right.
Yeah, because they have another one that has a length of cut of 150 thou.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the next size down of flute length.
It's even 3 flute, which is what I like. Yeah, okay, that might work.
I love Harvey. I get so much stuff from Harvey. So
I'd like to see if Kyocera has an equivalent tool. Yeah. It might not though. That's such a weird tool.
Yeah. That's why I like Harvey. Like anytime I have like a specialty, like weird request for something, I'm like, I'm going to check Harvey. Oh yes, they have something that'll work fabulously. So
I wonder how much it costs for like carbide cutting tools or AB tools to make 100 thou end mill.
I know that I remember watching a video from Saunders where he got a custom cutter from a company, and he said it was like $10 or $20 more than the closest equivalent cutter or something. And this was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Wasn't that like a weird slitting saw or something though?
I think so. But it was, and so it might be more expensive depending on the brand and what it is, but I remember it was surprisingly cheap for what he did, which makes complete sense. I mean, if you're making a whole bunch of parts and you just write a custom program that grinds it to a different depth, like, is it really that much more work other than just keeping track of it?
They do it all at the control. It's like all that stuff is built into the machine. Yeah. So they just say, hey, give me this diameter, this flute length.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm drastically oversimplifying this, but
yeah. I don't think it's as complicated as like for them, other than like just the hassle of having to change it to run your tool.
Because if it was $20 a tool or $30 a tool, but it was like exactly the right size and shape and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I need to redesign my whole production process on those. Before I was doing these individual blanks, my plan is to go to basically a strip of carabiners. Did we talk about this with fidget things? I think we did. I basically want a strip of carabiners like in a frame that I can just bolt down to the table.
So no longer blanks?
So they will be laser cut blanks, yes. However, instead of being individual ones that just come loosey-goosey in a bag, they will come in these little strips of 10 or 20 or whatever makes sense.
Is that going to be more expensive than just buying the straight out titanium?
Probably. But than buying the titanium? I doubt it, because those blanks were so much cheaper.
Yeah, but you were like, I tried to price out 1911 grip blanks, which is a solid chunk of titanium in the shape of a 1911 grip, and it's way cheaper based off that company you sent me the info for, to get it through them than it is through Send Cut Send. It's like a third the price.
Interesting. One of the things to keep in mind is for me to slot them out of titanium is very slow.
Yeah, but you could use larger tooling if you're trying to do the
But then you
perimeter
lose
of a.
packing density.
No, I don't think so. Not as much as you'd think. I don't know. You'd have to
And
play
there's
with it.
also some very narrow gaps, like the gap between the end of the mechanism and the like here. For those of you who are listening, sorry, I'm going to show this on the video. So this is what the blanks look. Oh, go away, scales. So this gap here is really small,
Mm-hmm.
and so you'd have to use small tooling there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I haven't done the legwork on. Oh, look, you're looking at yourself. I haven't done the legwork on this yet. I have just like done it in my brain and gone, oh, that's probably about right. And that's as far as I've gotten.
Then I am going to formally challenge you to consider machining it all out without going through send cut send and price it out from a solid sheet and figure out your machine time for it.
There would definitely be advantages of doing things that way. I would be the first to admit that.
So at least consider it, like give it a healthy consideration and look into it, and before you just write it off.
That would
Because
get me better wall finishes, which would be nice.
At the very least, you can write it off and be like, hey, I at least compared it to that, and so I'm more confident in going this direction.
Yeah, I will look into that first. Because the other thing that gets you, which is kind of what I was trying to figure out with my other method, is automation with just a flat plate is much, much, much easier than with a blank.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about ways to rig up some sort of automation, maybe potentially as like a linear transfer kind of operation with a long strip of carabiners.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I never got past like vaguely formed ideas in my head, but I was thinking about like having a tool holder with a dowel pin and you like stick it in a hole on the strip of carabiners and move it over, and then have pneumatic cylinders go down and lock themselves into other dowel pin holes. And
yeah,
I don't know if it's practical. Actually, I do know that it's not practical, but it would be really cool.
So one method that would work great for your carabiners that I just got done doing on the 1911 grips that I did
Mm-hmm.
was it's my 1911 grips I did in 2 ops, but my second op had 2 stages.
Okay.
So what I did was I machined it out of a flat piece on op 1 and got rid of everything, and I drilled extra holes around my parts, and then I used those holes to hold down the part on op 2, where I would machine away all the pockets in the center of the 1911 grips, where then I would put my screws in, and then I would machine everything else out and separate them out into their individual pieces. Because you have those op 80 holes, I bet you could drill and tap those in op 1, and then when you flip them over, you could hold them and do the perimeters in op 2 and separate them out. And so my guess, if I was to do this from scratch, this is how I would do it. I would have my sheet out. I would do all of the internal slots, which should just be that one bottom slot.
Yep.
And then I would drill and tap all of my holes. And then whenever I went to flip it, I'd use a Saunders. I'd have a Saunders pallet. I'd have one in the machine and one out of the machine. So I'd have duplicate pallets. But the one out of the machine, I would have countersunk holes on the bottom side. That way I could screw 80 screws into the bottom of the carabiners. And then I would use those in combination with the slot that I'd milled in op 1 to hold all of those individual ones in place. And then I would do the perimeter from the op 2 side and machine them out that way. And all I'd have to do is the perimeter in op 2. And if I really wanted to, I'd get fancy. And on the op 1 side, this is a technique that I started using that I really like. If I'm trying to get something done in two sides, and I can't finish my perimeter and the op 1 side, what I started doing was I did a 2D contour, but I left 10 thou, and I went just deep enough where I could get the chamfer on it. And then in the op 2 side, whenever I do my final 2D contour, it comes right up to the chamfer, so I can have both top and bottom chamfered at the same time.
Yep. So assuming that I'm doing the laser cut strips and not doing it out of plate stock, my plan was to do an op 1 where There will be holes existing in the blanks, in the strips that are outside of the carabiners, but pre-lasered in, that I would use for work holding. And I would drill and tap the holes. I would chamfer the top side, and then I would add some through holes sized for like a 440 or whatever makes sense here. Then I would flip them over onto Op2 and then zip off the tabs that hold them in, finish the side walls, add the top chamfers.
Another thing you could do if you want to do a hybrid of the two methods, are you wanting to do the 2D contour at all?
Undecided at this point.
So what I do for a lot of my big jobs for this company I'm doing for is I get all my pieces water jet cut, but I leave 20 thou, and then I just touch up the edges. That way I'm not actually machining it out of a solid block. Instead, if you're doing your laser cut blanks, and the only reason I don't like doing that with laser is because specifically in stainless, that'll harden the stainless where the laser is at. So that's why I have to water jet all of that. But I don't know if titanium work hardens like that or not.
It gets really abrasive. You end up with like titanium oxide or something like that, which is sandpaper like. But I mean, it's not like you're doing hardened steel. Like, it's doable. Worst case scenario, you have a rougher and a finisher.
Okay. Because if you could do what you're talking about and then just make your oversize your blanks a little bit. That way, for your op one side, it doesn't really matter as much, and then on your op two, you can do your final contours and break them apart from out of that skeleton.
Let's see. If we were doing, let's say we were doing in plates, would you do vacuum work holding, you think?
Probably not, because I'm drilling and tapping all the way through the sheet.
Yeah, you just stick gaskets there.
True. Maybe. I guess it would depend on if I could, because I have a Pearson pallet system now, so that's the perspective I'm thinking of. If I could fit a sheet on top and a sheet on bottom and get op 1 and op 2 on the same fixture, that way every time I load in a fixture, and I have two identical fixtures, every time I load it, I have an op 1 side complete and an op 2 side complete. That way I'm getting a set amount of carabiners every single time I hit the cycle start button. That's how I would do it.
Yeah.
That's how I would do it, is I would have, and that's the only reason I wouldn't use vacuum, is because I'd have them on the same pallet, and I could pull the pallet off, and put the next one on, and then while that's running, I could be transferring all the parts off of the bottom half, and then flipping that sheet over, loading in a fresh sheet on the top. That way, when the cycle's done, switch out pallets, repeat the process.
You could actually do, let's say you were doing vacuum, you could even do an op 0 and just poke like 4 holes for mounting it, extra securely in. That wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah. I'm not against the vacuum. I just got a vacuum fixture and I haven't used it yet. I'm about to use it on one of these jobs, actually. So I'm super glad I got it now. So I'll know more about vacuum in a week or two as I get my first taste of it.
Yeah, because theoretically I should have pretty good surface area. So
yeah, I think it would work great. You just have to have a dedicated fixture for it, which is totally doable. And then, you could have your op 1 be vacuumed and then your op 2 screwed through to hold it down.
I wonder if you could do it all in one setup with a back chamfer tool and like a pause halfway through to add some fasteners.
I think you could, for sure.
I don't know if that's actually any better, though. I don't know.
The only reason I would suggest no is because there's a pause where you're going to be reaching into the machine to put in screws.
Exactly.
And so now you're bent over the machine and the machine is not running while you're trying to screw in the fasteners, which is the number one problem with the 1911 grips. Is because I don't have it set up on the Pearson pallet system yet. When I've run them, I've had to stop the machine and I'm sitting over the machine trying to put in 16 screws one at a time. And the spindle can't be running while I'm doing that. And I'm bent over the machine, which is like okay, this is why Pearson developed his palette system, was for this reason right here.
Yeah. And yeah, and I try to make, and this is, not lean, but it works better for my system. It is not lean, but it is optimizing for the bottleneck. So take your pick, which is I try to do as high density work holding as I can so that the runtime is as long as I can. So I get as many spindle hours overnight as I can.
Yeah, which if you listen to things like continuous improvement, they're like the opposite of that. They try to get they try to do one piece flow. Is at least that's kind of what I've gotten out of a lot of their stuff. Like you're talking about batching it where you can get long run times, which I am all about. But listening to them talk a little bit, and I could be reading it wrong or remembering it wrong, but I'm pretty sure Austere Manufacturing was they have batches of like 30, and they were trying to get to where when they run one, they have one that's done and 29 that are being run, and then when they have two done, they have two that are done, but they have to wait for the other 28 to run, and because they're doing it one at a time in their machine. And that doesn't seem like a problem to me, but based off of how they were talking about it in their continuous improvement podcast, it sounded like he was trying to get down to smaller batches so he could get parts. So when people ordered something, the day the order came in, they manufactured those parts and shipped them out, which is an awesome goal to get to, but that also sounds like a lot of extra work.
I mean, he has all that really cool automation stuff.
He does.
I
He
think
does.
does his automation get the part out of the machine though? Is that where he's
No.
running into issues?
Yes. So from the sound of things, the problem is that he gets like batches of 30 off of his machine, and then they got to go into tumblers, and the tumblers is
Mm-hmm.
like 2 hours. And then the problem that he's having right now, I believe, was with his tumblers. He had his machine would get done before his first tumbler batch would get done. And so he'd have to wait for his first tumbler batch to get done before he could stick in the next
Yeah.
tumbler batch. And so he was trying to run it in smaller batches. And I don't remember all the details about all this, but I think the conclusion came to just get more tumblers.
Yes.
But he was trying to get his batch size smaller. So I don't know.
Do you know
I
what
don't know
else he
all.
needs to do? He needs to switch to powder coat away from Cerakote. Cerakote is awful because it forces you into batches. Powder coat really reduces the batch size. It's just the marketing aspect is the only reason that he can't really do it or would choose not to.
Yeah, I'd be curious to compare Cerakote and powder coat a little bit closer because I do like how easy powder coat sounds like it is, for sure. But the durability compared to the two, I'd be interested to see how they stand up because I know powder coat can be really really durable, but all the powder coat that has been really really durable that I have seen has also been really really thick.
Yes, and that is the problem is you run into thickness. And
Yeah,
unlike carabiners, it is a pretty chunky powder coat.
yeah. Which I'm
And
I'm gonna pull out my trusty carabiner because it is chipping
is
a
it
lot.
I that is curious to me because I haven't seen any chipping on any of mine.
I
Though
carry mine daily.
honestly, like since I started making these, I mean, I work, 100 feet from my house. I don't drive. I one wheel. I drive maybe 100 miles a month or whatever now.
I was gonna say I carry my carabiner everywhere. I'm constantly pulling it out. It's constantly dangling from my keychain. I mean, it is chipped. It is worn. I mean, I got a big chip. I don't know if you can see that on the top there.
No,
See if that helps it. Oh, I just turned that off.
I don't think it's going to show up with the resolution we're getting.
That could be.
Well, at
Well, I'll
least
send you
with
a
the
photo
new
of it.
design, you can now swap out your cores and scales independently.
Yeah, and honestly, the inside edge isn't been the inside of it hasn't been as bad as the outer edges.
That's interesting.
Well, that's because that's where it's riding against the titanium keyring that you have right here.
Yeah.
Because I have it riding on that. So But I love it though. This is my number one showpiece everywhere I go.
I oh, by the way, I sent you a package today with some carabiners in it,
Oh, cool.
but the ones that you need to laser engrave, not ones for you. And I should have sent you one of the not so tactical carabiners.
There'll be more packages going back and forth at some point.
Yeah. And I will get you that engraving, by the way. I don't actually know what it is off the top of my head yet. I need to confirm with the customer, but
Okay.
I sent you some packages.
So they are ordering it?
Yes, yeah, the order's been placed.
Woohoo!
They came out of the tumbler, I think Saturday, and they sat over the weekend because I didn't work. I didn't work Friday, Saturday, Sunday because Scott and I were both just exhausted working on the carabiners. We probably worked, I don't know, 80, 90 hours in the previous week. So we were like, let's take a day off.
So I do have some sad news. Speaking of which,
Uh-oh.
the order of the laser engraved continuous job. I reached out to him today because it's right about the time period that he said we'd start doing it, and he said he's going a different direction.
Oh no, that's too bad.
So he said that he talked to a lot of other people, and the laser cut sheet metal that he was using contrasted against the powder coated box that it's on.
Mm-hmm.
He said it had a higher contrast than our laser etchings or markings, which it does. In the light, with the laser markings, it's a really nice black if you're looking at it straight on. But if you catch a reflection, it looks like a solid white surface. You can't see it at all.
Interesting. Yeah.
Just the nature of the process. And so, one thing that I mentioned to him, which he hasn't replied back yet, is we can also use that laser, that spray on stuff,
Yeah.
and that cures on with the laser, and that is a lot more matte in color. It's just a lot more work on our end. So we'll see. I don't imagine we're going to get it at this point. I'm really sad and a little bit frustrated about all of it, but we're not getting that. So dang it.
Yeah, that is too bad.
So, but it's part of business. You know, you bend over backwards trying to get the business, and you're not guaranteed until that PO comes across your table. So,
Yep. Good thing you didn't buy the laser.
Yeah. You know, we were talking about that, like you know, are we gonna get another laser? We're gonna get a laser when this PO comes in. Not coming in now. So,
I need a laser at some point here. I did something that you might find interesting, and I'm going to try to pull it up here so I can show it on the other screen. But I made my scales for the not so tactical carabiner. I made them open source.
Ooh.
And what my license with that is basically as generous as I could make it without risking losing money. Let's put that up. Now you're looking at yourself. There you go. So I have the Fusion files available. I have step files. I have STLs. And it's all on printables at the moment. That was the best place I could think to put it. I could put it on my own website. But
That's
basically, cool. And basically my license is do whatever you want with the scales. If you like, you can make your own scales. If you want to make and sell your own scales, that is fine. Just don't pretend that you're designing the everything, and don't make the cores and sell those, which I'm not releasing the files for.
Gotcha.
So if people want to design their own scales and sell them, you are perfectly welcome to. If you would like to design your own scales and put them on cores and sell a whole assembled unit, you can do that. I'll wholesale you the cores, price so that you can still make money.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
This was something I meant to do before launch and just ran out of time. But yeah, if anybody wants to make the some scales for their carabiner, they now can.
Huh. That's super cool. I saw fidget things underneath you. I was looking at
Yeah.
what that was.
So Fidget Things launched his Kickstarter, and it is awesome and doing way better than mine, and I'm not jealous at all. I'm actually learning a lot of things by watching him run his Kickstarter. But he has the little click he was talking about on the last one. It's a little box that holds a mechanical keyboard switch,
Mm-hmm.
and it's as his name implies, it is a fidget toy. So he was kind enough to promote me and hit one of his updates, and so I'm going to be sticking him at the bottom of my updates.
Yeah. So is that F that's on his deal there? Is that laser engraved?
I believe that is actually a hole. That is an off-the-shelf keycap. I don't think that's one of them. I don't think that's one of the ones he made. And it's a hole in a metal keycap, so that if you have a keyboard that lights up from underneath, you can still see the letter through it.
Oh, okay.
He could have made that one. I don't know. That one he definitely made.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, I backed him. I didn't pay for a full one, but I did give him $10. But he's doing really well.
Yeah, he is. When did
He's
he go
at
live?
15,000? 2 or 3 days ago.
Oh, dang.
And I think he was at 10,000 this morning, so maybe 11,000.
Wow. What's his called?
Fidget Thing Switch, in color.
Switch.
So, yeah, Fidget Things is a great guy. If you guys are interested in fidget toys, go check out his carabiner. Just go to Kickstarter. And did I call it a carabiner?
Yes, you did.
He does not sell a carabiner, but he does sell fidget toys. So go to Kickstarter, search for Fidget Things. Oh, he spells it as one word. Oops. And his switch and color should show up for you. And then tell him Design the Everything sent you. Or Design the Everything and Harrison sent you.
That's
what is
cool.
the name of our podcast? Taps and Patience. Taps and Patience sent you. So.
Yeah. He's a lot younger than I thought he'd be. Or at least he looked a lot younger when on the podcast than I was expecting.
I have no idea how old he is. I think he's older than us, but not by a huge amount.
I was going to say, he looked younger than I was picturing in my head. Like, that's the first time I've actually seen his face. So,
from meeting him in person, I can tell you he is very much in shape, unlike me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is probably helping.
Yeah, that could be. He's a bit like me, probably in the sense that, like, if you were to shave my beard, I look like I'm 12.
Fair.
And so he might have a little bit of that baby face going for him, like I do.
Yeah.
So did I tell you the story of when I was in college, my senior year, I made the mistake of clipping my beard when I was trimming it one morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, it's all coming off. So I took it all off, and I went to school, and classmates that I've been gone to school with for 4 or 5 years at this point, they're like, oh, hi, are you looking, are you lost, or where are you at? And I'm like, like, do you need help finding where you're going? I'm like, this is Harrison. They're like, oh my gosh, I thought you were a little kid coming in here to, like, get a tour. I was like, shut up.
Yeah, I feel like I had to do something similar once. And it was like, oh, I like my beard. I'm going to stick with my beard.
It didn't help that was in the middle of winter. And it's amazing how much your beard actually insulates when you suddenly lose it. It was like, oh, everything is cold.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah, it was good to have him. I really enjoyed talking with him. So,
I vote we talk about the Kickstarter next time around.
Fair enough.
I feel like things are changing too fast right now anyway.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, TLDR, it's way behind where it needs to be. And Scott and I are frantically trying to fix it.
Okay. Can I at least ask a primer question that you don't have to go into full detail about?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're doing to fix it? Or is there anything you're doing that you think could turn it around?
That is the goal. So, like I said, we took some time off over the weekend, and we came up with more of a game plan this morning. And then I spent all day today doing taxes stuff,
Okay.
which was way more than I expected. So I did not get as far in that as I intended. However, like I was talking to Fidget Things, getting some of his advice, and we are starting to do some of that. The open sourcing the scales was part of it, just to kind of build a little bit more excitement, have more to talk about, more to share.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were always going to do that, but I wasn't going to do it, right now. It was just something I was going to do, whenever we got around to it after the campaign was over. But
Can I make an observation?
yes.
So the first time you launched it, I feel like there was a lot more hype around it.
You mean
And
the not for
this,
climbing carabiner?
yes,
Yes, I
yeah.
100% agree.
And then this time it's felt more like a revision rather than a whole new deal. And I think that's probably where most of your slowness stems from.
Yes, I'm inclined to agree.
Okay.
I think, we can kind of get into a list of problems. That is definitely one of them. Needing to do the retrofit kits on the last carabiner, I think, was also kind of like, I think most people were happy with how I handled it, but some people definitely weren't. I think some people are just carabinered out. Like they bought a carabiner from me and they don't really need a second one, or they're just Kickstartered out. Like, we've done 2 Kickstarters, now 3 Kickstarters in the last 6 months or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, the Queen one was really small, but
And it did really well
it did
for what it
well.
was.
But it's still me being like, okay, guys, help me support the Kickstarter, back the Kickstarter.
Yeah. If you're constantly doing that. So, and you don't have to answer this one right now, but just think about it, and then maybe we'll come back to this question later. If if Kickstarter becomes a point where constantly releasing Kickstarters is not as big as you thought it would be, do you think you guys will pivot as a business?
I
And
mean, if it's
you
not
could
working, absolutely.
okay. Well, I kind of yeah.
And maybe we go to 2 Kickstarters a year. Like that is very much a possibility now. Or maybe we do more variety.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we do twice as many Kickstarters, but we only expect to do $3,000 on each of them.
Yeah.
There's, I don't know.
Or maybe the problem with this one was just it had so many issues. That's why it's underperforming and not everyone's Kickstarted out. It's too close to. It's too similar to a different one.
Yeah, I think the similarities are part of it. We didn't spend as long like talking about the development of this. Like it was developed largely in the background. I think our social media on it is just boring. I think in the past with like the not for climbing carabiner, like we were a little bit more out there and being more interesting. Whereas on this one, we were just prepared. Like we were prepared and we were sitting down ahead of times writing things, and we had 2 weeks of posts pre-scheduled out. And when you schedule 12 posts in a day, like what do you say to make it stand out?
Less frantic.
Yeah, I think they're all things that contributed. We didn't have a live stream of the carabiner testing robot, which is something I plan on remedying. I don't know. I think it was a combination of like 12 different things.
Yeah.
And like 6 of those we can probably fix.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, it's interesting. I'm trying to learn as much as I can through you guys because we've had conversations about doing another Kickstarter, although we have no idea what it would be at this point. But it'd be fun to see how we could do with another one at some point.
Yeah, I think you guys could do it. You can join our little. If we talked about the Kickstarter cabal,
Mm-mm.
Okay, I've created a Kickstarter cabal.
Oh, that's
where
cool.
I don't know how much detail I want to talk about the cabal. Aren't cabals supposed to be secret? Or a syndicate, whatever you want to call us. Basically, like me and a couple other people who do a lot of Kickstarters, like we got together in a group and we're like, hey, you support me, I'll support you when you do your Kickstarter. I'll do updates for you. I'll reach out to my audience. I'll back you so that people get notifications, and you do the same for me.
Yep.
Fidget things is
Cross
part of the
cross
cabal.
cross referencing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would,
Cool.
yeah. When you join our, you can join our cabal when you start doing Kickstarters.
Yeah. Right now we're probably not going to do it anytime soon. I got to find a good product that would make sense to do it. I would like to do another product because I still want to push our product stuff to a new level, but I need to figure out like I the job shop stuff I've got figured out. But if we're going to do product stuff, I need to figure out what direction we want to go in terms of products. Poker themed has kind of been what we've done the most of and been the most successful with. But we need to figure out if that's something we want to continue or if we want to go a different direction. Um, and I don't
I
have a
think you
good
guys
answer
need
for
to
that.
focus. I think you need to choose one thing and focus until you're ready to spin up a second company.
Right now, the thing that brings in the most money is the job shop stuff, and the product stuff has been a really healthy passive income that I don't want to give up.
That's fair. Okay, you bring a valid point. Because you're like, your coins are doing pretty well, and
They're doing well, but I mean, they're doing like I don't know, 1,000 or two a month well, which is not enough for me to go, oh, I'm going to turn that off. Or not so little that I would go, oh, I'm going to turn that off and just do the job shop stuff, but it's not enough that I would go, oh, I'm going to quit the job shop stuff and just do the coins.
yeah.
so, so it's like right in that middle ground where it's like that's a really nice help every month, but it's not enough to make me want to do that only.
Yeah. I have like
So
my Patreon, which is kind of that, where it's like, some reliable money that's coming in every month. Though I would actually drop everything and just do that if I could. Like if I could
yeah,
just somehow be all Patreon, I totally would.
you
But we
could
need
come up
like
with
10
this.
times more people.
I have a great idea that would work for that. So you start developing this machine that can play music, but you do it in a very novel way. You do it with marbles, and then you get like everyone in the world to subscribe to your Patreon page, so you can build this massive machine. It's gonna play beautiful music.
Is his Patreon really that big? How big is it? Like just huge?
It is massive.
That's
It
cool.
is
Good for him.
massive.
He does cool stuff though.
He does. No, he does great stuff. He produces a lot of good content.
Yeah.
But like I've watched his video. I've watched a lot of his videos, and then you look at the end of his video, and it's like 3 minutes of Patreon scrolling.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, he's making some really good money off of Patreon, even if all those people are only giving him $1 a month.
That is something I want to push more, like a lot more, is doing more like one-off things, like one-off projects or like small batches of 10 and putting them up in the Patreon store just for the Patreons and just getting as much value in there as I can. Maybe doing some fusion classes, putting them up in the Patreon store for free, but it'd still be password protected behind the Patreon wall, and just
Mm-hmm.
do everything I can to provide a lot of value there. And because like that continuous support is huge for cash flow and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you, Patreons. I like you guys.
So, but we'll see. I really like the idea of product based stuff, but the job shop stuff is paying way too good right now, and it's starting to pick up momentum and like pay really well. So
I foresee a day within a year, maybe not the year, but within a year, where you guys are just all job shop and you'll be looking over longingly at the Etsy stuff, being like, oh, that was kind of nice, but like we don't have time for it.
that could
And
definitely happen.
and then you're gonna go, oh wow, it's nice to be able to just focus on one thing.
Yeah. I I would love to if that got to a point where that business was going really well and I could hire people in, I would let that business run passively in the background and switch
Yeah.
over to products. That would be like the best outcome would be like get the job shop business going cuz like really once you built the clientele and you got the work coming in, you just need someone there who's, manning the phone, quoting stuff, programming stuff, running the machines. Like it can run pretty passively, I feel like, if you have good systems and procedures in place. And then that would give me time and money to develop towards products. Because
Yep.
I have some really cool products I'd like to do, but they're really expensive and require a lot of R&D and financial backing. Like, you know, bringing those little playing card cases to market was probably a good 6 to 10 grand of resources in the R&D and anodizing and tooling and material and time and labor. And I mean, and it paid back nothing. And it's just like, I can't be doing that
Yep.
on products. Like,
Part of that is you guys just need to learn how to do product development.
that is very
For
true.
example, do you know how much it costs us to develop the new carabiners, excluding time?
Probably a lot less than what it took me to do those.
About $600, and about $300 was in taps, and about
Yeah.
$100 was in floating tap holders. Like, it was basically just some materials.
Yeah. But to be fair, that was one of the very first things we did when we started getting into machining.
Yes, I also was starting with an existing product and
Yeah.
improving it.
And in addition to that, we did some dumb things. Like, we went out and pre-bought everything before we told anyone what we were working on.
Yeah.
So had we actually tested the market, product development 101, then we would have figured out real quick that either one, our marketing sucks, which it does, or two, is there anyone really looking to spend, 60, $50 on an aluminum playing card case? I would argue there is, but I would also argue that I haven't found them.
Yes, you have to reach them.
So in that sense, the product was a complete and utter failure, and we still have, I don't know, 40 to 50 of those things laying around that we've had for almost a year now. And they've been selling off slowly. We'll sell like one a month maybe. So
it was like the Design the Everything wallet, the buttress wallet. It took me like 3 years to just sell off the prototypes we made.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of where these are falling into. And it's really sad because I think they could do really well. One thing I've never done, and I've said it and said it and said it, but I've never done it, is I really need to go down to some casinos and try to wholesale them, because I bet in that market they would do really well, and that's completely on me for never doing that.
Well, part of my goal for actually, I was about to say this year, but really, I have a week scheduled out to figure all this stuff out this month. Is how to do more wholesale sales. We already like informally talked to one place locally, and they're not going to work for us. It's like a coffee shop that happens to sell some other stuff, and like it's not the right market for us. But there are some places nearby that could be, especially if we leave our city and go down to a city called Carmel, which is it's like it changes every now and then, but it's always one of the top 10 wealthiest cities in the U.S. And normally they sit around like number 4. And so my higher end stuff I think would do better there. Where we are, Muncie is not that.
Yeah,
We're
and
kind of a Rust Belt city.
That being said, you guys do have that big Game Con thing.
Gen Con, yeah,
Gen Con. I wouldn't mind coming up there and doing that with my deck defenders. I think they would actually, in coins, I bet they do really well up there.
We may do a booth at the not this coming Gen Con, because apparently if you don't sign up a year in advance, you don't get a spot.
Oh.
But we may do a booth at the next one. It's like a year from July or something like that. So,
have you actually tried to get a booth yet?
Yeah, we looked into it, and they were all booked. Like I said, you have to do them. Like basically, the vendors sign there is a vendor sign up at Gen Con. So like you go to Gen Con and you sign up for the next year.
Gotcha. It's that far out. Wow.
It is that far out, yeah. It's a really big event.
That's cool.
It's bigger than IMTS.
More big events.
It's like 3 times the size of IMTS.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm. In terms of people, not in terms of square footage, but in terms of people.
That's insane.
It is huge.
Okay, yeah, that would do really well. Yeah, I need to probably go up there with you when you go and sign up my own booth.
Do you want to come to Gen Con with me and Scott?
I might have to do that.
Come to Gen Con with me and Scott. We'll give you a place to stay. We'll give you transportation.
When is it?
I don't know. It's on the calendar on the other side of this wall, but now my headphones are wired. So
Okay, we'll have to figure that out because
Yeah.
that sounds like fun.
We could do a meetup if anybody cares about us?
Yeah, all three of you.
Yeah. Hi, Mom. Thank you for coming to my meetup.
I was gonna say I get to meet AJ's mom at Gen Con.
And Scott.
And Scott. Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, do you want to take us out?
Sure. All right, guys. You know what time it is. It's time to share to everyone. Tell everyone about the podcast. I need that hypno frog from Futurama. Tell everyone.
And back my podcast. That's not what it's called. Back my Kickstarter.
And back AJ's Kickstarter and Design the Everything. Or not. AJ designed the everything. And Fidget Things. Oh my goodness. It's
yeah, and Fidget Things. We like Fidget Things.
And Fidget Things. He's a good guy too. So back both their Kickstarters. Tell all your friends about the podcast. And this is Harrison with Precision Ingenuity, shining out with AJ from Design the Everything.
Bye.